This wasn't my first visit to Alton Caves. I remember exploring its big rooms as a kid, amazed by everything, and later as a teenager, laughing with friends as our voices bounced off the old walls. But today, the cave seemed different, colder, like it knew I was alone. I stooped to pass under a low arch, my headlamp's light flickering and throwing weird shadows on the rough walls. The shadows moved as if they were alive, growing and shrinking, making me feel like something was watching. Just a quick trip, I told myself quietly, the sound of water dripping somewhere in the darkness adding to the strange feeling. As I walked deeper, the air got colder, and a strange, musty smell mixed with something else I couldn't quite place made me feel nervous. Each step took me further down into what felt like the belly of a huge, sleeping beast. I was heading for the crystal chamber I found last summer, which was beautiful compared to the tight paths leading to it. But finding your way down here was tricky. At a spot where I usually went left, I went right, thinking it was a quicker way. The path got tighter, very quickly. The ceiling came down, and the walls seemed to close in, as if the cave was trying to squeeze me. The rocks were wet, making it slippery, and the tight space made every noise louder, my boots scraping, my heavy breathing and the sound of water drops hitting small puddles. This passage really started to close in fast. The lower ceiling and closing walls felt like the cave itself was grabbing hold. The dampness made everything slippery, and the tight space made every little sound. My boots on the ground, my heavy breaths, the water dripping seemed louder and a bit scary. I squeezed through a space that felt really tight. The hard, cold rock pressed against my back and chest, pushing against my jacket. It's just a tight spot, nothing new, I told myself. But the shadows moved in scary ways each time my light flickered, making me feel really nervous about forgotten paths and dark places where no light ever shines. As I pushed forward, the gap got even tighter. The sharp edges of the rocks caught on my clothes like they didn't want me there. A wave of panic hit me when I realized I couldn't go back. The way behind me looked even smaller now, as if the cave was closing off where I'd come from. "Stay calm," I said to myself, my voice sounding strange in the tight silence. I fought the fear rising inside me, thinking, just a little more. Keep going. With all my strength, I managed to squeeze forward a few more inches. Breathing hard, my breaths echoed weirdly in the cramped space. Suddenly, my light flickered and then went out, leaving me in deep, heavy darkness. It felt like a thick black curtain had wrapped around me, cutting me off from everything outside. I tapped on my headlamp, muttered a curse, and tried to calm my breathing. "It's okay. Stay calm," I kept telling myself, but each time I said it, it sounded less believable. Minutes stretched like hours, each passing second becoming a mounting testament to my entrapment. Time seemed to warp and distort in the enveloping darkness, a relentless adversary that magnified every lurking fear. I shifted slightly, seeking a slightly less uncomfortable position, but the unyielding rock constricted tighter with every movement. It felt almost as if the cave was actively resisting my efforts to escape, its cold, damp surfaces pressing against me with an unforgiving force. "You've been in tough spots before," I murmured to myself, attempting to inject some confidence into my strained voice. However, the overwhelming silence of the cave seemed to devour my words, leaving a chilling hollowness that echoed ominously in my ears. The air around me felt thicker, almost suffocating, as each labored breath seemed to battle against the oppressive weight of the earth piled high above me. This heightened sense of peril bore down on me, making the already dire situation seem utterly inescapable, ensnaring me further in its cold, stony grip. I thought about yelling for help, but the idea seemed futile. Who would hear me in these silent, expansive chambers? The only sounds were the soft, whisper-like breaths of the cave itself, creating an atmosphere of isolation. The last time I had checked, my phone was devoid of any signal, and now it was buried deep within my backpack, possibly out of reach amid my other gear. No one knows I'm here. I came alone, I realized with a sinking heart, causing my breathing to quicken in the narrow confines. The air was thick and heavy, laden with the earthy aroma of damp soil mixed with the mustiness of untouched spaces. Each breath felt like inhaling through a wet, heavy cloth, making the claustrophobic atmosphere even more stifling and overwhelming. Time seemed to stand still. I couldn't tell how long I had been trapped. My thoughts began to spiral uncontrollably as the cave walls appeared to close in tighter, the immense weight of the earth above me feeling almost suffocating. It was as if the ground itself was conspiring to keep me captive, shrouded away from any glimpse of daylight. "You can't stay here," I told myself fiercely, the words bouncing around in the cramped, dark space. "Okay. Think." With a sense of desperate urgency, I twisted and turned, attempting to inch my way back along the path I had entered, but exhaustion was quickly overtaking me, with every muscle aching and protesting loudly. Each attempt to move felt like a monumental struggle against the cave's constricting grip. "Just a little more," I gasped, pushing myself to the limits. My sweat mixed with the cold dampness of the cave walls, chilling me to the bone and making the already oppressive air feel even heavier and more stifling. Finally, completely spent and struggling to breathe, I stopped to rest. My heart was pounding so hard in the absolute silence that it seemed unnaturally loud, echoing like the only sign of life in this ancient, tomb-like cave. "I think I will rest for a bit and try again," I resolved quietly to myself, closing my eyes for just a moment in an attempt to muster whatever strength I had left. As I lay there, surrounded by the earth, a part of me questioned whether I would ever see the sun again. Yet, amidst that oppressive darkness, I discovered a peculiar, somber comfort. The cool, rigid rock that had initially seemed so threatening now felt almost protective, as if it were shielding me from the fears of the outside world. "Just a bit of rest," I repeated to myself, allowing the darkness to soothe me into a delicate calm, with the cave enveloping me in its cold, silent embrace.